Good day, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the MedTech Business Academy, sponsored by your MedTech experts. Today, I'm joined by my colleagues, Scott Alexander and Barbara Strain. We're excited to talk to you as we talk right before the Super Bowl of 2026. So, a lot of action being placed, however you want to take that. You take it as you want it, but there's a lot happening in healthcare as we speak right now. There's another massive union strike that occurred on the West Coast, joining the brethren from the East Coast in New York City. So staffing issues are of tantamount importance and being talked about. There's M&A activity that's occurring as we speak right now. Earnings from Q4 have been trickling out, and for the most part, they've been looking pretty positive. A number of beats across the board. So activity just as a whole across healthcare seems to be increasing. So we're just going to kind of do a smorgasbord of quick hit topics. Scott, what's your topic first?
My topic is the M&A and the financial performance of medical device companies has been super hot, which I think is indicative of, um, I think it's exciting, right? I look at this and I think, okay, well, having the beats that you mentioned from an earnings standpoint tell us that procedure volumes are up. There's more sort of activity going on in the healthcare space, which again, if we kind of think about the past several years, it's been challenging, right? People have been kind of concerned about that. So to me, that feels like log jams breaking free. And then the other thing on the M&A side is always exciting because it changes up how the players are playing. So we saw Penumbra got acquired. So I saw that what CathWorks got bought by Medtronic. So this is primarily cardiovascular in nature, but a lot of times these things are really helpful when you're buying big entities like these two companies. It's usually like a supply chain negotiating play versus an innovation play. And so I expect that particularly if you're playing in the cardiovascular space, you're going to start to see Medtronic leaning in a little bit more in their contracting with health systems. You're going to see obviously Boston Scientific leaning in more to try and gain share by leveraging these things in a way that allows them to beat some competitors out. So I think it's going to be an interesting time from a macro standpoint that is going to jostle a bunch of boats in the harbor.
Yeah, that's great. How about you, Barbara?
I was going to talk a little bit about that from a micro
Mhm.
viewpoint, is that the providers go, uh-oh, what's going to happen? Because M&A can mean several things to the providers. It can mean discontinuation of certain products, either from the acquiree or the acquirer. So it's really difficult. And we know that a lot of these take a long time to get to the point where it might affect you, but you don't know in which direction. And nobody can really say, because once the ink is just barely dry, a lot of stuff just doesn't come out except business as usual.
Mhm.
But sometimes we start to feel it when we order products and something might be either low on production or it's going to go off and be discontinued and things. So for the providers, it can mean a lot of dicey things. Could it be
Mhm.
better competitive pricing? Maybe not, because they just invested gazillion and billions of dollars. The other thing is, it could be, we've seen it often, especially in cardiac, where you don't have a breadth of certain catheters that you need to do what you get the
Mhm.
procedures done. So it can be a real conundrum for providers from a lot of perspectives, including the GPOs.
Playing off of that, I don't think that I ever saw prices go down when an acquisition occurred. Right? It's always prices are going up. It's always trying to squeeze the health systems and that sort of thing. And so if I was back in my old seat, I'd be looking for what Boston Scientific in particular is going to be trying to do in terms of access to products in exchange for other categories and things like that. So
Yeah, I mean, so much of acquisition really comes down to the ability to kind of accelerate adoption, right?
Mhm.
That's really what we're looking at. I mean, when you look like an acquisition like a Penumbra, having the resources that now Boston Scientific can put behind it, they can create awareness and bring that out to a much wider swath. That's their argument for why the prices aren't going to go down,
Mhm.
right? Is the ability to reach a far wider audience and present that to more people. But that's, I think, the double-edged sword of any of these things
Mhm.
is how does that work out? I think from a bullish bearish standpoint, the bullishness is, as we've seen from these earnings, money is flowing, um, which we've been talking about for the last year and a half. Everybody's been watching that money stay on the sideline through all the activities of the last 18 months, which have been pronounced,
Mhm.
to say the slightest. So we're seeing that money flow in. Yet the labor staffing and just general staffing, right? I think January had the highest layoffs or the slowest rate of labor growth that's
Mhm.
occurred in the last year and a half. So we have these contradicting macroeconomic indications that are happening out there, right? Money's finally being released, yet jobs are decreasing, or at least not growing at the same pace with which money's coming in. And we're still seeing rounds of layoffs occur. So it's a confounding dynamic of you want to jump on the bull, but you're still holding on to that bear of like, I don't know if I'm ready yet.
Mhm. It's interesting too. We're seeing, I saw a report that came out of the venture capital community. Was it last week, maybe? And they were saying that funding rounds are the highest they've ever been. And who was it? Somebody just raised the largest venture capital fund in history. This was like 2 weeks ago. One of the big guys, Kleiner Perkins or something like that.
Mhm.
But almost all of it is going towards AI.
Yes, it's all AI.
So that's kind of the other thing to be aware of is, like I think we're seeing some exits, which is obviously good for medtech venture capitalists, but we're seeing those dollars being reallocated towards AI driven plays as opposed to pure play med device. So,
I had a talk with somebody in the industry just this week about that, and about a year and a half ago, before they were really looking to raise money, they were a darling, and people were really interested in them. And
yep,
now they're having massive challenges of getting even the ones that were knocking on their door to respond, and
yep,
it's because they don't have any AI exposure,
yeah,
right? It literally changed just like that.
yeah.
And that's how these things go. It's really interesting. I
What's the
think
next topic you want to talk
I,
about?
I,
Oh, go ahead.
I think we should come back to kind of that labor discussion
Mm-hmm.
because there's two massive union strikes that are going on. And people can say it's isolated, fine, primarily in the California market, primarily in the New York market. But clearly, those are leading locations for what trickles to everybody else. And they're also a high concentration of labor in a particular geographic area. And when you hear the concerns, at least on the periphery, it's always comes down to pay and wages. But the other things that we keep hearing when you're hearing the interviews with a lot of the nurses on the front lines of the picketing, they're saying, we've been abused, literally have been abused by patients, right? And we've
Mm,
heard this, right? This isn't
no
something
joke.
new that anybody's heard about, right? People on the front lines in healthcare are being abused. Now, some of the things that I read recently are we're not being abused because patients are bad. The patients are bad because they're frustrated because they're not getting the same level of care
Mm-hmm.
because, we're having to try to do more with less, which dilutes the quality of care.
Mm.
So the staffing issue is a major concern, and we've talked about it ad nauseum on here. If you're a med tech company, you really need to be thinking about workflow.
Yeah.
Somewhere in
Yeah.
your value proposition, you have to insert some dynamic of we add value, not just through outcomes, still the most important thing, but we add
Mm-hmm.
value to workflow and throughput. What do you guys think
Mhm.
think of that?
Well, I'll take a stab at that because I
Yeah.
want to sort of make a few other comments about that value stuff. But it's got to be that high value, and you've got to concentrate on that operational piece of
Yes.
the CFO type thing,
Hmm.
the clinical, operational, financial thing. It's I've been really pushing the operational piece of that because if you have even just one hiccup in there that means an extra step or an extra manual thing or anything like that, it's going to get probably turned down.
Mhm.
It's got to be such high value. The CEOs these days are saying, if you're not bringing me really, really high value, we're not even going to look
Yeah.
because we have too many things going on. So if you listen to all of us today, there's too much going on, and
Yeah.
they've got to strategically keep moving in a direction. And when any of those things change up too much, it changes the dynamics of that strategy. So you have to go along with it. Scott?
I think just to add on to that, of the three, clinical, financial, operational, the operational piece provides the greatest moats for companies. Because if we
Mm.
think, right, like,
You
hey,
said moat, like a castle moat is
moat
kind
as
of
in a
what. Yep.
castle moat,
Yep.
an
Hmm.
inability to be removed from your place. And the reason why is like if we think about the easiest one is financial, because you're like, hey, we're going to save you 10 minutes of OR time. Like everybody can say that, right? If we think about clinical, realistically, if we think about the clinical improvements that we're seeing, they're marginal at best,
Yes.
right? And so what companies don't understand is the operational piece is your moat. If you are 5 times more efficient to be used, or you're built into the workflow and you take pressure off of the team in doing so, they can never get rid of you.
Mm-mm.
And yet, you know, in all of my roles, everybody always focuses on the clinical side and then maybe a little financial, and then they like avoid the operational piece. And it's like you got it backwards. You got to have that operational workflow piece
Right.
because of all the things we're talking about, and the understanding that at the end of the day, this is all a manufacturing process of manufacturing health for patients. And if you're in that, you are untouchable realistically.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
just did a market research project recently, and I won't talk about the areas or what it was, but it was in high acuity areas, and we were speaking with high acuity physicians, nurses, and techs in those high acuity areas, high turnover areas, so you can extrapolate what we're talking about. And basically, the dynamic came down to, the regulations are very much focused on infection and challenges, and these people were saying, I hear you, but I have to see 35 patients per hour,
Mhm.
right? And so sticking to those regulations, unfortunately, at the time, I have to prioritize what is here and now for that patient, and then worrying about everything else at another time. And it's an unfortunate trade-off that has to be made. But they are basically saying my throughput, my operational workflow in that moment has to take precedence, and then evaluating that patient on a what's here and now basis to review. And yes, it may come at the sacrifice of something later, but these are the tools I have to work with, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it really is just back to it. Like if you think about what's going on, everything is a manufacturing process inside a hospital system.
Yes.
I'm a doctor. I've got to see X number of patients. Right. We have a patient coming in with heart failure exacerbations or decompensated COPD or whatever. Like we have to have steps, procedures, processes, and tools to be able to get that person from X to a better state of care to then discharge them out. Like that's the way that we would you should think about hospital systems as opposed to some other type of analogy.
Hey, yeah,
Well,
it's
you
sound.
mentioned, yeah. So, Skender, you mentioned regulatory. Well, it's also reimbursement things.
Yes.
CMS, I talked about a couple podcasts ago that they have all these different programs that are coming active. One of which a supplier actually reached out to me and asked me my opinion about the Medicare one for called Team. And, you've got to have your workflow down and you've got to have everything happening at the right time, right place, right patient, right drug, right device everything, right people, in order to make all of that work to get your money back that you have to reinvest and those
Yes.
sorts of things. So all of these are going on at once. And so the suppliers and the providers that are going to make make or break it are going to understand those things together and be able to meld, the little things we learned when we were little, the steeple and the people and all that kind of stuff. But it's really true.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I think that's the most underappreciated thing when we talk to clients and prospective clients right now is their frustration with the inertia going on in the industry. And that's why I think, Scott, that was very profound what you said. The operational, the O part of that equation offers the greatest opportunity to make an impact. And truly, right? The amount of effort needing to showcase that when to make a clinical outcome, you have to engineer, you have to test, you have to do all these things. All those things are massive undertakings, right? But if you
Yep.
think about it in the context of what you said in terms of manufacturing, do a lean sigma
Mhm.
effort and try to figure out how do you reduce 5 steps in the clinician's pathway. That is
Mhm.
a massive, in the risk reward or optimum, optimization model, that's a massive outcome
Yes.
that can be gained there.
We were, I was with a client on site with a large GPO, and we're negotiating a contract, and they had their like membership there, and we're talking through it, and the great technology, great use case, that sort of thing. The thing that got the attention: order sets, workflow, SOPs.
Hmm.
That's what got people to lean in because that's all the operational stuff that they need support around for this particular kind of a technology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like a super form of human factors engineering in a way. It's
Yes.
taking that to another level,
Yes.
and what I tell clients, and they're surprised when I mention it, but then when they think about it, they start to do it, it actually works. I said, go ask your current customers on various intervals a few
Mhm.
key questions. Is it working the way you thought it was going to work? Did it actually solve something that you had a problem with? And if not, what do we need to do to help that?
Yes. Yes. And I think the operational side is so pronounced in the challenges that are out there that the ability to craft a story to that is I mean, everybody can argue about we create 10% improvement in outcomes, 5% improvement in outcomes. That's still very much a show me
Mhm.
Totally.
dynamic that is hard, right?
Yep.
You
Hmm.
can show all the tests and the studies, et cetera, that you want, but it's still show me. If you showcase an operational dynamic, just tie it to that story.
Mhm.
Right.
Again, I think it's outweighed in
Hmm.
today's vector that people are calculating to. And I think we can really make an
Right.
impact there.
Yep.
So, all right, let's wrap it up, people. Final topic you want to throw out there just to leave everybody with. What do we want to say?
Scott.
Now I was going to let ladies first.
Oh, ladies first. I
That was
didn't
my like
realize that I'm the
southern.
square next to
Yeah,
you over
yeah. No,
here.
sorry. I'll point in both directions
There
because
you
You were
go.
you were John
yeah,
J. Bullock.
that's right. I was
Yes.
See if
John J.
anybody.
Jingleheimer Schmidt. Yeah,
Yes.
is my name too.
I mean, my thoughts continue to be go out and ask your current customers, whether you've had them for 3 months or 3 years or whatever, and sort of touch base on something that you can translate to other of your customers or new customers of, hey, if you do it like this, or if you can tweak this or that, you'll get the most out of this operationally.
Love it.
I'll build on that because I think that's super important. So in the previous role, when I was working for Covidian and Medtronic, spent a lot of time in the ORs, and every surgeon that I was in when we were have a project would ask me, "Hey, how are the people at fill in your blank, top tier health system? How are they doing this procedure?" And I think that's a tremendous value that we as medical device, executives don't think about enough is like being able to help drive the operational efficiencies of organizations. And as a result, lots of opportunity to create value for your clients or your customers without a lot of that added expense, which then yields return on investment for you, positive margin. So I would lean into that.
Yeah. I think the idea of lean is the story of the day. I think the hospitals are doing it because they have to.
Mm-hmm.
Patient walks in the door, they have to accept the patient in most cases. They have to see the patient, et cetera, et cetera. And regardless of whether they have a staff of 15 or 50 that day, the patient has to be seen. And I think we have to think along the same lines as how can we think in lean ideas? How
Mm-hmm.
can we really look at those? I mean, as a quick aside, and this is not meant to be a shameless plug, but we are investigating because just due to the size of our network, companies constantly come to us and ask us if our network can do some of the more kind of physical type of work in terms of setting things up, right? Drilling, unboxing, setting up equipment, et cetera, et cetera. And it's difficult with the educated nature of our network. So we're actually partnering with another network that has people that do those and has equivalent 20,000 people. And it's something that's catching fire because the idea is, how do I stay lean? If I can get somebody to go do drilling in Pittsburgh, I don't have to do that. We don't need to do that as an organization. And yes, I have to pay somebody, but it's much easier. And I think the idea of lean is starting to come around. And I
Mm-hmm.
think more and more people have to be thinking in that vein in our industry.
Mhm.
Yep.
Agree.
So exciting times. Again, the beauty of healthcare is it's always there. It's always happening. You have to find a way. Today, the creativity and the adaptation of people is going to lead to the greatest success. So we encourage everybody. Fortunately, we are the med experts for a reason. Reach out to us if you have questions about how you can be lean. This is what we do. We'd love to share our knowledge with you. So, with that, please like or subscribe to our podcast anywhere you see it. We'd appreciate those. Any comments, please bring them to us. Otherwise, we thank everybody for listening to another episode. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.